Is there less tolerance for Christianity now? Is faith being pushed out of public life? Should Christians take a stand to reclaim their rightful place in society? These questions and more will be answered at the Religious Freedom at the Crossroads.
Here we are at the Conference of Religious Freedom at the Crossroads at Sheridan College in Perth. This is a 2-day conference discussing about the problem of or the lack of freedom for religion.
I think the whole idea of this conference, an engagement on these important issues, and always from the perspective of tolerance. I think what's very important is for us to exercise free speech and have the right to have different opinions. I think today many people have to think about these issues, and I think what's very important in a democracy is to allow people to have the right to express opinions that sometimes we might disagree with.
You are the first speaker in the first session.
Freedom of religion is not only about religion, it is the foundation of freedom of speech. And if religious people lose their freedom of religion, if it's compromised, restricted, then it affects everyone's freedom of speech.
And I noticed your speech was sometimes about your book.
The book points out that the laws are being changed to remove effectively sex-based rights, such as what sport you play in, what school a child attends, medical treatments, what change rooms and showers you use. So once you start dissolving the meaning of sex and you're replacing it with gender identity, you start to create a whole range of conflicts, particularly when a man, as the law says, can self-identify as a woman with or without sex change surgery, and he doesn't have to do it because he feels transgender. A person can make that transition for other reasons.
This has been a wonderful conference with highly acclaimed parliamentarians, lawyers, academics here who have contributed to a high level of thinking around freedom of religion in Australia and the laws. We're in a season in Australia where politically things are being challenged, both in statutory legislation as well as in case law. So we've seen a lot of cases go through courts, both state-based and federal, that really question what is religion, to what extent do people have freedoms of religion to speak out in public, to have an opinion on certain matters. And now we're starting to realise that those conversations have had an impact on our freedoms because they've been redefined in ways that are truly unhelpful to freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of association, freedom of movement, and freedom of belief. They're all associated freedoms.
What we're talking about at this conference is the freedom of religion. That's the important concept that we're talking about here. So we should ensure that persons are able readily to establish their places of religion, because if we don't provide that freedom, where places of religion and persons gathering together are prevented and prohibited. We don't want to get to that in Australia, so we've got to make sure that our town planning schemes properly reflect what we would all want to be able to encourage other persons to be able to do, and that is establish places of worship, build churches, establish and freely exercise their right to come together to express their religious freedoms.
You took a big part in this conference today and yesterday.
I think the conference has been really useful in, one, making people much more aware of what the issues are, and on some of the issues get a lot better understanding, and hopefully that will motivate people to engage more and seek to speak into the public square and actually make a difference. It's been suggested we should have a Christian worldview conference for lawyers in terms of how that plays through into the legislation. There's some real possibilities there.
So, abortion and abortion laws in Queensland, which is probably the most extreme in Australia. What do you think about that? That's your topic in your PhD.
And as Christians, or even as non-Christians, not a necessarily Christian perspective, that if we agree with abortions or we don't, we should stand up for it. And everyone should have the ability to freely speak what they think, whether they are pro-abortion or not. And we should have a debate in a civilised manner of why they think abortion should and should not be allowed.
So for the audience who don't know or don't understand what is the first stage of abortion is mean, what does it mean practically?
Basically the right to terminate your fetus or your pregnancy at any stage of gestation, and the issue is whether it is a human being and when it is a human being, either at time of gestation or a certain period of time. In my opinion, if it is a human being at the time of gestation, therefore it should be disallowed because you're killing a human life, and no woman nor any person should have the right to kill another person. unless, of course, in my opinion, it's medically necessary to save the woman's life, because, of course, that's our most importance.
But that medical necessity is not included in the law.
In Queensland law, I believe it is, the health of the mother, but then the definition of health can be broadly defined to mean mental health, and that's the issue. Although in America, they might, in some states, they have the health of the mother allows abortion. The definition of health is so skewed, it's practically abortion on demand, and that's the issue. What does health mean, and why is it separate from a life-saving treatment of the mother? So that's the debate. What is health contained?
My presentation, it's a bold expose of the current litigation history in the last 12 years of what we've been doing in the middle of this field of litigation. And it's all litigation. There's no theory in this. Dragged out of bed to come here to tell people what's going on in the courts, tribunals, High Court, District Court, Supreme Court, all the civil administrative tribunals, certainly Victoria, New South Wales, ACT. Yeah, it's a mess, but it's happening.
How do you feel after your opening speech?
It was precious. I've been able to share my heart earlier. Well, I had, many people from the audience were sharing their heart with me afterwards. And so I feel like I'm back in my own diplomatic days where, we are two nations, but we're all Christians. And it was just kind of the brotherhood, being able to share and the appreciation and the love that was being shown to me. It's kind of choked me up a little bit.
Well, classical liberalism does place a great importance on particularly fundamental freedoms. So freedom of conscience, and from that freedom of religion, and from freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, and associated with that and necessary for the functioning of a civil society, freedom of association. So religious freedom is very much a major part of the classical liberal state. In fact, many of the principles that we have guide classical liberal philosophy, the classical liberal state, were actually in response to these issues concerning what's the interplay between state and society.
The graveyard shift. The last speaker of the evening, Steve. Tell us about something of your topic, religion and workplace.
Well, primarily my topic was about trying to contextualise the problems that Israel Folau is facing now. And the way I tried to tackle that was to talk about the contractual issues that he's having, and those contractual issues stemming in part from the policy positions that his employer has adopted and has essentially imposed on him by the employment contract. And the cautionary tale out of Israel Folau is really to understand that the policies can have a more pervasive effect and constrain even decent behaviour simply because it's incompatible with some of the wriggle words Rugby Australia's code of conduct. The policy itself deals with pretty much everybody who's involved with the game, particularly to players, but I suspect that policy is breached every day by every player in one way or another.
It was Tibor reporting to Undercurrent from the Religious Freedom at the Crossroads conference.